everyone, to a special episode of the Illusion of Consensus podcast with myself, Rav Arora, independent journalist and co-founder of the Illusion of Consensus Substack and podcast. Today, I'm excited to have on for it should be the third time now the most popular guest on the program officially. We should get her like an accolade or some kind of award for that. We'll figure it out. Dr. Nerina Ramlakhan, based in the UK, who is a sleep physiologist, an author who's written some great books on sleep. We've already had her on a couple times to discuss many things related to sleep, especially regulating the nervous system, entering into parasympathetic states, and lowering anxiety levels, lowering stress levels, falling into sleep better. We've talked about a lot of topics, and today, as many of my listeners and audience members will know, this is a special Q&A episode because at one point I put out a call out for any questions for Dr. Nerina ahead of I think our first or second episode. As my members will know, I try to do a audience segment for every episode, usually anywhere between 2 to 5 questions, relatively short, 10 to 15 minutes for each of our episodes. But for this one, it was very unusual, but it was just a testament to how people struggle with this so much. I received a flood of questions, way more than 10 to 15 minutes. It seemed more like you could do 4 hours on all the questions that we received. So I asked Nerina if she'd be down to do a special Q&A episode, just addressing your questions, as many as we can get through in about an hour and a half. So we're going to try and do that, try to go through the most important questions. I went through and tried to find common denominators, common themes. So questions that are asked by multiple people, similar themes, those will definitely be addressed. And we've just kind of prioritized the most important things and the things that are coming up the most, things related to supplementation, getting up at night over and over again, having a hard time sleeping, fitness trackers, sleep trackers, electrolytes, nutrient levels, etc. So we're going to go through all of it. Nerina, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Rav. It's a pleasure to be back. And I'm just delighted that people are so passionate about the same thing I'm passionate about. Well, I'm delighted that people are interested, although I suspect that interest comes from, the struggle that they're having with sleep. So it's a good opportunity we have today to help people.
Yeah. And I'm very grateful for our connection. I forget how I found out about you, but when I reached out, it was just for, one conversation, but now we're on our third one and we're just kind of on a roll with you on the podcast. So I appreciate you giving your time. And today, we're really just devoting this time to the listeners and their questions, which obviously will help many more people than just the people who submitted questions, because a lot of the things that we'll talk about will apply to a lot of people who are struggling with the same things or curious about the same things, like supplements and sleep pills, sleep medications. So we have a lot of those questions. Before we started rolling, you had said to me that a lot of the things that were asked can be addressed through your 5 non-negotiables. So I told you that we could start the episode by reiterating that. I think we talked a bit about that last episode. But if you just want to spend a minute or two to reiterate the 5 sleep non-negotiables, which are things that people can apply in their life, that'd be great. Because as you said, a lot of the things people are struggling with could potentially be fixed by implementing these 5 things.
Okay, I'm not saying they can be fixed. Let's be really clear on that one. But they act like a fulcrum or a tipping point. And in my 28 years of doing this work, somebody pointed out to me that I always say 25 years, but actually it's been longer than that. It's 28 years now of doing this work, and having worked with probably millions of people, if you include my media work, worked with a lot of people, from corporate athletes, professionals in organizations, women recovering from cancer, children in school. So there's a breadth of experience. I noticed that there were 5 things that I was saying to people over and over again when I was trying to get them on the road to getting good sleep. So these 5 things were they act like a reset for the nervous system. Because as you've mentioned, getting good sleep is about living in the right part of your nervous system. You have the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic. If you want to get good sleep, you have to be in your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest, repair, recovery, digestion, immune function, sexual function, all of the things that epitomize good health. So these 5 things help to reset the nervous system, because a lot of people are running in overdrive in the sympathetic nervous system. And that's what I was picking up when I was going through the questions. So these 5 things, you want to aim to do them for 7 to 10 days. 10 to 14, 7 to 14 days. It depends on the person and the state of their nervous system. But then I start to see results after this period of time. Number 1, eating a nutrient-rich breakfast within half an hour of rising. That means not fasting. So if you're having difficulty sleeping, any sleep problems, don't fast. Eat breakfast within 30 minutes of rising. Fat, protein, carbohydrate. Number 2, don't use caffeine as a substitute for food. Ideally, if you're having sleep problems, cut it out completely. No more than 1. Ideally, no caffeine after 2 p.m. Number 3, make sure you're well hydrated. And in the UK at the moment, unusually, we're calling it a heat wave. By your standards, probably not a heat wave. But, we want to be drinking about 2.5 to 3 liters of water a day. Number 4, surf
how warm
that
is it?
early.
What's the heat wave in the UK? 30 something degrees. I mean, I know at 9 p.m. tonight. Oh, at the moment it's 27. Earlier in the day it hit 32. I'm going to go to the river and swim at 9 p.m. after my last meeting tonight. But so number 4 was go to bed early. Yeah. It is. Number 4 is get to bed earlier. Surf that early phase of sleep before midnight, which is like the sweet spot. And we talked about this in one of the podcast interviews. We focused on why that 90 minutes before midnight is so important. Being in bed, resting, off your phone, doing something restorative that helps the nervous system to decompress from sympathetic to parasympathetic. The 5th one was about devices and electronics. Ideally getting your phone out of the room, not looking at your phone during the night, giving yourself an electronic sundown before you go to bed. So these 5 things I've noticed change people's nervous system and set them on the trajectory to getting better sleep. Simple, but difficult for a lot of people. I have this online course on my website. It's very inexpensive. It's about 5 hours of videos and scientific explanations of all of this stuff and how to do it. That's on my website. So if people want to start with this methodology, that's the place to go. Yeah, we'll definitely link to it below, and I highly recommend people check it out. Can you also just quickly reiterate, because I just find this so interesting, and I think a lot of people miss it, why one should sleep well before midnight, like around 10 or 9:30? Why do you recommend that?
Yeah, not sleep. I'm not saying sleep. I'm saying rest. There is a difference, and those of you who have a wearable, a good wearable, I'm wearing one right now. I'm not on commission to Oura Ring, but I love it. Oura Ring it demarcates stressed, engaged, relaxed, restorative. So there's a big difference. Before you can get into any kind of restorative rest, sleep, you need to be in a state of rest and relaxation before you can access that. But a lot of people get into bed and they expect restoration to happen straight away without going to relaxed. So the getting into bed between 9:30 and 10 in Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, it's like the biochemical, physiological sweet spot. It's like a surfer surfing a wave, and they don't jump onto the middle of the wave. They catch the wave at the right point, the sweet spot, so that they can hit the peak of that wave, And this is what going to bed around 9:30, 10 is like. And you want to be doing something that is restful for the nervous system. And this is where having a wearable can be useful. I've always known I'm a sensitive human being and a sensitive sleeper. But it was when I started using my wearable that I realized how sensitive I am, and that even watching a stimulating cop program on the television actually sends my data into stress. Watching Dexter with my daughter, about serial killer. Yeah. I love that program. But my body is so super engaged, not even engaged, it's actually stressed because I'm over empathizing, over engaging in the program.
What about comedy? What about comedy? Like I've like changed up things sometimes. Just watch
Yeah,
like Seinfeld or The Office
absolutely.
or something at night.
Well, brilliant. Or Frasier or Friends, the old ones you go back to time and time again. But ideally, you want to allow some time where you're in bed, off screens,
Okay.
not watching TV. I would like to share with you throughout the course of the Q&A today a technique that can really powerfully help with stressful dream processes and overactive minds. And I'll do that at some point when we're ready. I'll
Okay.
share a 10-minute
Okay.
routine that can help
Yeah.
with that. And if you want, that routine can really help as a
Sure.
part of the decompression process.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, let's dig in. We have about an hour and 10 minutes here. Let's try to get through as many as we can. Keeping in mind, obviously, we want to go into depth in as many as we can, but at the same time, there are probably about 15 of these. So let's we'll see how if we can balance between concision and depth for each one. Okay, since you mentioned dreams, Andrea asks, does more dreaming correlate with better quality sleep or vice versa?
Yeah, not necessarily, but our dream process is really important. So we dream for all sorts of reasons, and I talk about this in my books, but we dream to pack away the information of the day. So we might dream, I might dream about this tonight, it's files of information that I'm taking into my brain. My brain's deciding what it wants to do. So there's the information consolidation, which is important for memory and learning. Then there is dreaming that is dealing with emotions and dealing with emotions and traumas. So it's like you invite into your brain the best psychotherapist, the best counselor for your traumas, and they sort it out in your dream process. Okay, so that's a really important aspect of dreaming. A lot of the dreaming happens in REM sleep, by the way, rapid eye movement.
Mm.
And then you have dreams that are just
and why
create.
and just to follow up on that, and why is it that many people, and I've experienced this too, that oftentimes it just feels weird. Like, I understand what you're saying, but sometimes it can be that the most difficult things that you're going through in the dreams, they appear in even more crazy or like traumatic ways sometimes. Like, someone's bothering you, you had a fight with someone, and then in the dream it's like a very violent fight when that would never happen in real life. But it's like sometimes like the difficult thing you're going through intensifies in the dream rather than lowers.
So that spills over into the third reason why we dream, which is creativity. And our creative process can increase during our dream process, the dream phases. So sometimes you can get this overlap between creativity and the emotional process, and it gets blown up and it gets blown out of proportion. So a small thing, something that wouldn't bother you too much during the day, it is irritating, becomes hugely magnified. So one reason that we also dream is for creative ideas. And Stephen King, the renowned author, he's famous for having some of his best insights during his sleep, creative insights. And he went on and wrote, the misery. He dreamt he was chained to a bed and he was having his ankles smashed. That's where misery came from. He was on an aeroplane. Or scientific discoveries that were intuited during the dream process of people like Einstein or Kekulé, who elucidated the structure of benzene in his sleep, where he dreamt that a snake was curling back in on itself, eating its tail, and he elucidated the ring structure of benzene. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to encounter a snake or he's encountered a snake that was eating his tail. He suddenly realized that it wasn't a chain of hydrocarbons, of carbon chain, it was a hexagonal ring structure. So there's a lot of creativity. Fourth reason, which is really important, is junk process dreams, which answers Anthea's question. Was it Anthea or Andrea?
Andrea.
Some of our dreams are pure crap, right? Because we're on these things too much. We're taking in all this information. We're overstimulating the nervous system. We might be caffeinated. We might be energy drinked up to the hilt. There might be alcohol. There's lots of dopamine. So the dream process gets exaggerated, and it's almost like junk dreams, which aren't serving any purpose. So it's not a case of more dreams equals better. You want the right kind of dream process. Clean sleep, I call this. Clean sleep, clean dreams.
What do you mean by that?
I've spoke about this in one of the previous episodes where I talked about sattvic sleep. Sattvic is a Hindi word meaning pure. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Gwyneth Paltrow, the actress, talked about clean sleep. But it's sleep that's unmuddied by caffeine, sugars,
Mm-hmm.
noise, if you like.
Yeah.
It's the right amount of REM sleep, the right amount of deep sleep, the right
Right.
amount of light sleep, which is the warm up for the deep sleep, the slow wave sleep.
Right. And would the inverse be true? Like if someone's dreaming, well, it's hard to quantify for me at least. But like, is it possible that dreaming less could be better? Someone who's not dreaming at all or dreaming very, very little.
It's hard to quantify how much we're dreaming. We all
Yeah.
dream, but we don't all remember our dreams. And
Yeah.
there are scientists who, I can't remember the name of the scientist, I've written about it in one of my books, it might be Edelman, who talks about the thickness of the membranes between the left and right hemispheres, and that people who have thin membranes are more likely to remember their dreams. But some people just don't remember their dreams, and some people do. But those who don't remember doesn't mean you're not dreaming. It's just that you're not remembering enough for those dreams to have the memories to have transferred into your subconscious memory and conscious memory. So they're rooted in the unconscious. You might wake up with a feeling of having had dreams, but not really knowing what they are. Certain medications and drugs can also interfere with the dream process as well.
And generally speaking, some people have excessive dreams or just excessively vivid dreams. Could that indicate like that being a problem that could be fixed or ameliorated over time? Someone who's having a lot of vivid dreams, most times.
So you want to clean up your act, basically. You want to get the phone out. I keep saying it all the time, but stop overstimulating the nervous system with information and blue light. Stop overstimulating the nervous system with caffeine or energy drinks. I did a TV program in the UK years ago called Freaky Sleepers. I was involved in that. And there was one guy, he was a bodybuilder, whose dreams were so vivid that he actually acted out one of his dreams. It turned into a night terror. He got up and he jumped out of the window. Luckily, he was on the first floor. He broke his arm, but he lived.
Wow.
It turned out he was on his phone. So you might think, oh my gosh, there must be lots of trauma. But actually, he was on his phone a lot, and he was drinking a lot of energy drinks and supplements for his bodybuilding. When we cleaned that up and we helped him to work on relaxation techniques, he stopped having the vivid dreams. So sometimes these things might seem extreme, but actually there are small things that can really make a big difference. Also, dealing with the traumas, dealing with the trauma in your waking hours. If you're dreaming of the same thing over and over again, it might be therapeutic support or journaling or something like that you need. Do you want me to tell you this 10-minute technique that relates to dreams now? That can help.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. You do something I call it vomit journaling. Before you go to bed, and you might do it in that restful 9:30 to 10 period of time before you go to bed. You go to bed, you're aware that your clients have given you a hard time. That journalist from Vancouver was so aggressive during the interview that, your teenage daughter's giving you all this trouble, and you've had all these, and the dating site is just not giving you the results, and you go to bed and you're so pissed off. Right?
Are you giving like a two truths and lies situation? Identify the truths and what you just said.
Hey, it's my third interview with you. I feel like we know each other now. Anyway, but so you go to bed and you're carrying all the stress of the day, and you want to be able to sleep well, and you just realize that you're just wired, right? So you get your journal, you set a timer for 10 minutes. And you get your pen, and you don't do it on your phone. You do it there. The neurological connection between pen and paper is different to typing on your phone on a screen. So 10 minutes timer, and you write for 10 minutes everything. You just vomit it out onto the paper. And then at the end of it, you might rip it up, throw it away, or burn it, or shred it, or something. You throw it away, but you don't read it again. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct, perfect prose. But then you do this and you notice the difference to your sleep. You do this night after night. You will, on top of my 5 non-negotiables, you will become an amazing sleeper. Trust me, this one works.
So just write out your concerns, worries, anxieties, just whatever's going on.
Literally. And the reason I'm saying vomit is because I don't mean beautifully think, oh, and then what happened? Rav said this, and then this happened, and then that. No, you literally, with urgency, vomit it onto the paper.
Yeah.
Unedited, uncensored.
Yeah, that sounds great. I already have a journaling practice, and I can tell you it's very therapeutic. You're just spending like 20 minutes and just writing down things that are going on, and there could be a lot of benefits to that. But I'll definitely try
in
before
this
bedtime.
Yeah, and don't do it in a kind of any contemplation, trying to make sense of things way. You're literally just writing it out, uncensored, unedited, with a view to chucking it out. You don't need to look at it.
Uncensored. Uncensored. Don't have to show anyone.
Yeah.
Not for Substack.
No.
One more thing about the dreams. Yeah, I've moved away from this, and I feel like a lot of people will encounter this at some point in their life. You mentioned the junk dreams, and there are some people like myself who struggled with what they call pure OCD, having intrusive thoughts about things that don't align or don't make sense, or can be confusing. The most incredible, just vivid example of someone talking about this was this country artist Luke Combs. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think last year, and he was talking about, it was just so incredible, just kind of almost brought me to tears, how growing up he struggled with what they call pure OCD, or this kind of unfiltered chain of intrusive thoughts for him, having these, I think he said, suicidal or homicidal thoughts of like being in a school bus and being like, oh my God, what if I had a gun and I just like killed everyone? Like these like crazy thoughts where like he's such a peaceful, nice guy. He's not violent. He's done nothing like that before, but having those intrusive thoughts, play, and not knowing what to do with them and being freaked out of like, oh my God, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm a psychopath? And many people have all kinds of other crazy, weird thoughts. I think everyone does to a degree. One thing of a friend one time brought to me as it relates to sleep was exactly that, but for sleep. Like it's like, oh my God, I've had this dream, and I had this one last night, and I had this other one a few weeks ago where I was doing this weird thing, and my mom came, and I was looking at my mom differently, and I was like, oh my God, what does that mean? And me and my best friend, we had this conversation, and it like having these like weird things that are very, you could say, uncharacteristic, but at the same time, it was intrusive thoughts that he'd been going through, and he kind of fell in this rabbit hole of like maybe over-interpreting or like wondering like, oh my God, it appeared in my dreams. Does that mean that like my relationship with my friend is actually something else and something different? And like, have you encountered that before, where people kind of over-interpret or try to just kind of get stuck in trying to find meaning with the junk dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just start by saying, I mean, I could probably spend 3 hours just talking about intrusive thoughts and then how they can spill over into dreams. Absolutely. And I'd like to reassure your listeners by saying that we all have intrusive thoughts. I have not met a single human being. I don't even know, maybe if I sat down with the Dalai Lama, he would say he also has intrusive thoughts. We all have them. I have them. Everyone has them. It's the degree to which you are identifying with the noise in your brain and the degree to which you want to give them the center stage. And that, recently I opened a conference in England with 700 people with Professor Stephen Peters, who's notorious for having written The Chimp Paradox. And he spoke first, and I spoke afterwards, but he talks about the chimp part of the brain, the reptilian brain, which is houses the amygdala and those parts of the brain that are very infantile, very childlike, and they think that we're in survival mode all the time. And they run from trauma, and they run from victim consciousness. And if you look at David Hawkins' work, they would say they run from a lower state of consciousness, low frequencies. So we all have them. I wake up many mornings thinking everything's going to go wrong. It takes me a split second to spot it and to put those thoughts where they need to be, which is not center stage. I'm now at the age where I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of tools. I've done a lot of work on myself, psychological, trauma, and spiritual work. But, if you read any of my books, you'll know that I've had a history of suicide attempts. I was diagnosed bipolar. I was sectioned in 1995. So, I'm not some kind of standing on a pedestal of my thoughts are pure. I have worked on it so that I know when I'm having thoughts which are profoundly A, unhelpful, B, untrue. And I choose not to do, so things like meditation, journaling, cleaner living, cleaner lifestyle choices. Look, if I were to drink 10 cups of coffee a day, my thought process would be absolute crap.
Yeah.
There would be an idiot running around in my brain going, "You're rubbish. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why he's got you back for an interview. I don't know what you're doing." And it would just repeat it. So you can see why from the smallest things, if you don't look after your nervous system, you are more likely to wake up in survival mode. And if you're running on cortisol and adrenaline first thing in the morning, and then you're caffeinating it and you're dopaminating it, your thought process are going to be very low frequency, low consciousness, victim consciousness. Now, if you allow that to run your life, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. One difficulty that inevitably comes with the intrusive thoughts is, like, to use Luke Combs' example, being in the school bus, having the thought, what if I, or I'll just use another example. This one psychologist I spoke to, who helped me actually with my intrusive thoughts earlier this year when I spent a whole weekend stuck in this loop, worrying what it meant. And she gave the example. She's like, when I had my first child, just like a couple years ago, when I would take him out for a walk by the river, I was just bombarded with these thoughts of, what if I pick him up and throw him in the river? And I was stunned. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And it's like, it's still kind of a question that I'm working through sometimes, of like how to know the difference. Cause it's like, oh, you have the thought, what if I do it? And it's like, what how to tell between that thought versus, I'm going to, yell at my spouse, and, you end up doing that, and versus, something worse or something you're confused about, of like distinguishing between what's true and what's not true. It can be hard to figure that out for a lot of people.
And it can. And certainly the psychologist example is very relatable. And I had similar thoughts when I newly became a mother, because parenting is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And particularly if you are very sleep deprived. So yesterday I spoke on a parenting podcast where I talked about the baby sleep. It's called the Baby Sleep Connection, where I talked about just this. And I talked about how important it is as new parents to put your oxygen mask on. Make sure you're looking after yourself. You're eating properly. You're resting, not sleeping, but resting whenever you can. Not living on caffeine and alcohol to bring you down, because all of that makes the thought process worse. And then you can start tipping into postnatal depression, where those thoughts can become more catastrophic and you start not being able to separate out from what is reality and what isn't. But I think behind all of this lies doing the work on yourself. And if you recognize that you have a predisposition to thinking in a certain way, then if you want to become a better human being who's not constantly putting your chimp on the center stage, then with awareness, you need to take responsibility and make different choices, which is, I need to look after my energy. I need to make choices that enable me to get good sleep. I need to have good self-care practices such as the journaling or bringing in therapeutic support when I need it. Maybe even need to have spiritual practices that enable me to stay aligned with higher states of consciousness that don't make me stay stuck in my lower states of consciousness, which we all have, all of us. You only need to look at heads of governments and politicians to know that there are some people in very high places who are living from low places of consciousness. That's a whole other conversation.
Okay. Let's try to fast track this. Melatonin. A few people were asking about melatonin, side effects, whether they should take it. I'm just going to find the exact question here.
I saw the melatonin question, so I'm going to fast track it for you. Yeah, I'm going to fast track them. My bottom line, and I know Huberman has talked about melatonin in a lot of detail and probably more helpfully than I will do. So what I'm going to say is I don't recommend to my clients to use melatonin. It's a sleeping tablet. And like all sleeping tablets, just because it's called melatonin makes it sound like it's better for the body. But everyone reacts to melatonin in different ways. With some people, when I used it once, just as a trial, I lost 3 days of a holiday. It wiped me out. For some people, it won't touch the sides. It depends on your physiology and your sensitivity. Over time, you'll build up tolerance and it will stop working. And then you'll be looking for the next thing. The bottom line is to work naturally on making the good choices that are going to help you to sleep. Naturally, starting with those 5 non-negotiables for a start. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. A quick word from our first and exciting sponsor, Alchemy Elements. Alchemy Elements is a powerful adaptogenic supplement. For those of you who don't know, adaptogens are a class of plant compounds, primarily herbs and mushrooms, which can help build the mind and body's resistance to stress. Alchemy Elements contains a very unique and carefully selected blend of 9 adaptogens, such as lion's mane, cordyceps, polygalaroot, and shilajit, and they can help boost energy, boost your immunity, and increase focus and overall stabilize your mood. It can have a wide array of effects, which can often depend from individual to individual, but it's a great way to start your morning and generally increase your focus and your energy levels. You can just pour 1 scoop of Alchemy Elements into your morning coffee or your protein shake or smoothie, and you're off to the races. It's a great way to start the day. I use it every day. I find that it can generally stabilize my mood levels and increase focus, especially if I want to get a big project done or finish a very important task. Alchemy Elements often is a great way to kind of start and get my focus going and get me primed for whatever task I want to accomplish. We're very excited and very happy to work with Alchemy Elements. We've been working with them for a couple of months, and now in this new iteration of the podcast, we're going to continue our relationship, which is very special to us because Alchemy aligns with our mission and values of individuals taking greater ownership of their personal mental and physical health and relying less and less on corrupt and flawed generalized kind of medical advice, and less reliance on pharmaceutical drugs, and more of general interest and focus on holistic health. For a limited time, Illusion of Consensus readers and listeners can get 10% off their first order using the code word illusion, or 30% off a subscription monthly order, where you can get a monthly shipment of Alchemy Elements delivered to you. For the subscription orders, you can also get with it a bonus gold kit to store your Alchemy Elements. Overall, I think Alchemy is a fantastic product. I highly recommend you check them out in the link below in this podcast, wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple, Substack, Rumble, or YouTube. Just go to the link, use the code word illusion, and you can get your discount and you won't regret it. Yeah. This individual, they were asking 3 milligrams maximum, if that makes sense, or would it disrupt one's ability to self-produce melatonin, which is a concern Huberman has brought up. That if
I have no idea. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know unless I've worked with this person and I've stepped into their nervous system by asking them a lot of questions, which enables me to assess the sensitivity of their nervous system and then go, do you know what? I wouldn't touch it for you. For you, Rav, for example, I would be saying, don't touch melatonin. I would say if there's anything you want to use to help you sleep, go for something natural, more gentle on your nervous system, like valerian or homeopathy or Ayurveda. You know, but I do not prescribe in that way. I don't give prescriptive unless I've worked with someone and I know how sensitive is this person. Who is this human being? Because we're all different. Yeah.
Let's follow that up with questions about magnesium or CBD.
So magnesium, a good thing. I'm just waiting for my order of magnesium glycinate to arrive. I ran out a week ago. That's the most, that's the best, that's the highest efficacy, I think, of magnesium. The jury's still out, though, from a scientific perspective. So if you look at NIH research or the Sleep Foundation in the UK, they're still saying magnesium seems to be good for people. It seems to help the muscles to relax, and that magnesium glycinate might be the best form of magnesium. It's the most easily absorbed. But the scientific research is still a little bit dubious. However, my subjective experience and my clients who I work with, they say that things like magnesium, Epsom salt baths are brilliant. I certainly swear by them. CBD as well. There are preparations of CBD.
Also just pinpoint for magnesium. Yeah, there's also magnesium threonate, which seems to have more cognitive benefits, and magnesium biglycinate as well. Yeah. That's often recommended for sleep. And I really, from what I can tell, seems to be the muscle relaxant to cognitive benefits. There seem to be a wide array of potential benefits for people.
But the interesting thing is that, I've been without my magnesium for 2 weeks now, and many of my clients will say, I've just stopped taking the magnesium, but I'm sleeping amazingly well. That's me as well. It hasn't touched the sides, not taking the magnesium. So I think when I'm particularly stressed, particularly overloaded, traveling a lot, speaking a lot, that's when having the extra help in my nervous system from the magnesium glycinate, that's when it tips the balance.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that magnesium is like a direct support for sleep. In my experience, it's not like it seems to kind of help a little bit over time. It's not like you take it and then you're just sleeping better that night or even in a couple nights. It seems to have more of an indirect effect for sleep.
Although some people say that, they've got restless legs and they take it the night before and it really helps with their restless leg syndrome. Now, is that a placebo effect or is that a pharmacological effect? We don't know. And this is where the studies are not clear. But the bottom line is, if you think that magnesium is helping your restless legs, then keep taking it. And I know that, if I've had a really busy day, getting into an Epsom salt bath that's got lots of magnesium salts and electrolytes in it, that seems to really knock me out. I sleep really deeply after that.
Yeah. CBD gummies. CBD. So with marijuana, there's CBD, THC. THC can sometimes overactivate sympathetic nervous system. That's people who do high THC. That's when you get really high. A lot of people they do that recreationally. But CBD, on the other hand, is very, very different. It can have more of a calming effect for a lot of people. It can also help with chronic pain, people with fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Dr. Mike Hart from Toronto, who I'm going to be interviewing in a couple days. We'll probably chat a little bit more about cannabis medicine. But any thoughts on CBD for sleep?
Yeah, again, it can really help, and it depends on the individual as to how much and what dosage. And I won't go into THC too much because we need to keep this in the realms of legality. But I'm speaking from experience in terms of it really depends on your state. If you're using stuff like THC. Your underlying state, the THC can either make it worse or it can help you to relax. CBD as well. I have been sent preparations of legal CBD supplements, gummies, just to try because I'm a sleep expert. I'm called a sleep expert, and they can really help. They can really help. However, it depends again on the individual, and I personally do not take things like, I have CBD gummies in my cupboard. I'm more likely to take it on a Friday if I'm not speaking or doing a lot of cognitive work on a Saturday, because it really can knock me out. It can keep me in a restful state. Similarly, if I want to get up and go to the gym the next morning, I wouldn't be taking a gummy, So, I love coffee, and I take coffee with nootropics in it. And I choose which blend I will use according to whether I'm working out, whether I'm working creatively, or whether I just want to be zenned out and I'm just kind of meandering through my day. So these things, it really depends on the individual and their physiology and the nervous system.
So you're saying CBD, it can have, you've experienced such a relaxing effect that you only do it because it lasts that long? So the next day, if you have some heavy lifting to do, then you don't take it?
Heavy lifting, both cognitively or in physical terms. I don't take it. Yeah. If I need to do heavy lifting the next day, I don't.
Yeah. It lasts that long. It lasts that long? If you take it...
For me, it does. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Me, it does. But for my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, it doesn't touch the sides. A melatonin tablet for her doesn't affect her at all.
Yeah.
For me, I lose 3 days of my life. And I have other clients who say they feel so hungover from using gummies and what. So again, it's
highly
the individual, and it's getting to know yourself well enough.
Yeah. I'll list off a couple of other supplements. Just, this isn't part of the questions, but something that I've worked with. I mean, ashwagandha in general, people with high cortisol, stress, anxiety. It's been recommended to me by an Ayurvedic doctor, something I've used for prolonged periods of time. There's also, you mentioned valerian root. There's a great supplement I use by Air Sleep. Also, it has GABA, chamomile flower, valerian root, holy basil flower, hops, things like that. And then lastly, I mentioned GABA. There's also L-theanine. Huberman's talked about using L-theanine, and that people who have vivid dreams should avoid L-theanine because it could amplify that. Have you seen that before?
Yep, I've definitely heard. I haven't tried it myself, so I don't know, because I can have very vivid dreams because I'm creative. And whenever I'm building up to writing a new book, my dreams become more and more vivid. So, Rav, maybe you need to be writing a book. But again, it's a kind of trial and error thing. You've got to work out what works for you. We have a blend of teas in the UK. I don't know if you have them in Vancouver, but it's made by Twinings. And the one blend of the sleep teas, they make 2 blends of sleep teas. One of them has a lot of valerian, and that one, I hate the effect on me. And I have clients who say it makes them too sluggish. But the one that has less valerian and more passion flower or passiflora, that works beautifully for me. And I can take that and function really well the next day. So I would say to your listeners to really start listening to the body and listening to the quality of your sleep. And this might even take us into the wearables conversation, because the more you become familiar with what your wearable data tends to look like, then you can start to make choices with a little bit of soft data around it as well.
Yeah. Any thoughts on GABA or chamomile? Or GABA, chamomile, and apigenin. Have you worked with those or know much about them?
I haven't worked with apigenin. GABA can definitely help a lot of people with their sleep. I haven't tried it, but a lot of my clients have tried it, and they say it really helps them. Chamomile, you need to be getting therapeutic doses of that, or you need to be taking it in a homeopathic remedy for it to have an effect for most people. And the adaptogens that you mentioned earlier, things like, what was it? Ashwagandha, reishi mushrooms. I love the adaptogens, the mushrooms. Absolutely. Yeah. Rhodiola is another one. They can really help. I take those first thing in the morning, actually. Ashwagandha. I take a tonic with it.
Yeah, I'm curious actually. So what do you take? What are supplements that you like to use personally? If you want to answer that.
I should have brought the tonic with me. It's made by a nutritional therapist, and my tonic first thing in the morning has things like ashwagandha. It has rhodiola. It has because I'm postmenopausal. I'm at a certain age, and women at this age, you will naturally, your nervous system can get out of kilter. You can find yourself running on more cortisol in the mornings. So taking something like ashwagandha and rhodiola first thing in the morning can really help to smooth out cortisol spikes. And I also take a little bit before I go to bed at night. It also has a little bit of ginseng, Siberian ginseng in it as well. I don't have it directly before I go to bed, but I might have it 3 or 4 hours before I go to bed, before I have my evening meal, because the Siberian ginseng is quite stimulating. It's good for my physical training, but might not be good for my sleep. I take things like creatine, 5 milligrams of creatine after training in the gym, which is good for my mood, and it's also good for my muscle recovery. What else? Collagen, take a bit of that from time to time. And I'm waiting for my magnesium to land as well.
Yeah. That reminds me, I got to make another order of magnesium and ashwagandha. It's interesting you mentioned rhodiola, by the way. That's often used before exercise, before workouts, for increased energy. Many people reporting they can get in extra reps in the gym with rhodiola rosea. Gives them that extra boost before working out. So it's
Yeah.
interesting the concoction that you take, like ashwagandha. Many people use it for lowering cortisol, lowering stress. Rhodiola people use to kind of really activate things, give them that extra boost in the gym. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the coffee that I drink, 1 cup of coffee, maybe 5 times a week. The rest of the time I might just have 1 cup of tea. But the coffee that I use is made by a company. I'm not on commission to them, but they're called London Nootropics, and they use mushrooms in the coffee. And it has 3 blends. One is Zen, one is Flow, one is Mojo. And the Mojo I use when I'm working out. And it's got things like ginseng and cordyceps and stuff. And I can do more pull-ups. I'm stronger when I use them. But if I have Zen before I work out, it makes me really dizzy because it lowers my blood pressure. So I did that on Monday. It was not good for my training.
Wow. So you do drink coffee 5 times a week. You were recommending against. You were saying ideally not to drink coffee for people.
I now sleep really well after 30 odd years of insomnia from a baby through to my 30s. But I'm now sleeping in a phase of my life when I shouldn't be sleeping well, hormonally. When I have an elderly parent who's unwell and is 87, has Alzheimer's. I have a teenager. So I'm a single parent. I'm in those sandwich years where I shouldn't be. There's a lot of life events, but I'm sleeping better than I've slept in my life. So I've gone back to drinking 1 coffee, maybe 5 times a week. 5 times a week, I'll have 1 cup, this one lovely coffee, chosen very strategically with what am I doing today? Am I training? Am I not training? Am I writing more? Am I physically training? But I don't have more than 1 caffeinated drink a day because it just doesn't agree with me.
Right. Yeah. And the rule or the recommendation you have is for people who are struggling with sleep, then cut out the coffee, right?
Yeah, cut it right back. Don't use caffeine as a substitute for food. If you're going to have 1 caffeinated drink, eat first. And I always follow that rule. I never have my coffee first thing. I have typically 2 breakfasts in the morning, 1 after meditation, half an hour after I get up. Then there's normally some form of exercise or walking the dog or something. Then I might have the coffee with this kind of second. It's a lot of protein. There's a lot of fat going in because, again, at my age, I'm losing muscle mass exponentially. So I need to really keep up my protein and my fat to be as strong as I am.
Just confirming on time, we have 36 minutes. Is that right? You have a hard out.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Right.
I can give some really succinct 2-sentence answers if you like.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Ellen is asking, I struggle with a cycle of pain and urge to urinate at night. In her case, her bladder is shot due to having 5 big babies, including twins. Has upper extremity nerve damage after 5 surgeries. She's got a lot going on there. But she says the cycle goes, the urge to urinate wakes me up. The pain keeps me from falling asleep. Any help would be so much appreciated. Thanks for all that you do.
Oh, okay. So let me just say that the pain pathway and pain and emotions sit in the same part of the brain. So what will happen if somebody's waking up to go to the toilet, and what can happen is that stress can speed up the filtration of the kidneys and the need to urinate.
I've had that.
So stress
is
stress is a big factor in frequent urination. So what I would tell this lady is Ellen, was that her name? When she wakes up, do not check the time, because you're going to start programming yourself to say, oh my God, I keep waking up at 2 a.m. to pee. So do not check the time. The minute you register data, it wakes you up more. She then goes and pees. She then goes into the emotional vicious cycle, reptilian brain, lower consciousness, victim consciousness thing of, there we go, I keep waking up to urinate. Now I'm in pain again. And then you're into that loop of pain, cannot get to sleep. And the more you can't get to sleep, then you're going to want to go, she's going to want to go and urinate again, and then again, and then it starts to perpetuate that cycle. So, first of all, seek therapeutic support for dealing with the pain. It might be a pain management clinic. It might be therapy of some sort. It might be journaling on the pain if you can't afford therapeutic support, paid support. The other thing is do those practical things, those 5 non-negotiables, to make sure that your nervous system is as steady as it can be. You're not overstressing yourself by making poor lifestyle choices. Don't check the clock when you wake up during the night. Use on my Instagram, and I did a meditation with you in one of the podcasts where I did I love my left foot, I love my left big toe. I've written something for one of my brand clients, which is it's called Oak Tree Mobility, which is for elderly people who suffer from a lot of chronic pain. And I wrote a blog for them on dealing with pain and sleep. One of the best things that you can do for yourself, apart from managing stress and all the things I talked about, is to bring your attention into your breathing and do some form of body scan with your hands on your heart, or if your heart, one on your belly, and noticing breathing and using some form of mental self-talk or imagery or visualization to relax the mind from all of the thoughts that are spiraling into pain thoughts and victim thoughts. I hope that helps.
Yep.
There's a lot there,
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And I'll make a quick recommendation too, because I really struggled with frequent urination for a long time. And sometimes it comes like every few months, but I really struggled with it for a long time, very confused. And I talked to Dr. Howard Schubiner, who's an expert in the psychosomatic issues, chronic pain issues. I already did one podcast with Dr. David Schechter on the psychosomatic stuff. I'll have on Howard Schubiner as well. But I consulted with him after we went back over email for a number of other psychosomatic things I was dealing with. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, this frequent urination issue, could this also be psychosomatic, as in not caused by anything bladder related or nutrition or vitamin related, but like actually from nervous system dysregulation or anxiety or fear? And he gave with great confidence, he's like, this is psychosomatic. He's like, this is your nervous system in overdrive. You're in sympathetic over arousal. And it's funny. He said that, and then within a couple of days, it just went away, which is a very common experience for people struggling with psychosomatic, issues, whether back pain, tendinitis, digestive upset. It's like you work with a psychosomatic expert, and they tell you that, and suddenly something just kind of happens, and it helps. Oftentimes, though, it does take a little bit of work. And so for me, when those cycles kind of come back every now and then of like, oh, you go into bed at 11 and you got to go at 11:30, and it's like, oh, I got to go at 12 a.m. sleep. You got to get up and go again at 4 a.m. And I've been through hell with that. And really just the way out of that, described in the psychosomatic literature, is just essentially sending signals of safety and comfort to the area of pain and to your body in general. And so with that particular issue, just a lot of just sitting and just kind of really consciously calming down that kind of shakiness or quiveriness or fear kind of located in the bladder area, where you're just kind of like worried. I'm like, oh, do I have to go? Maybe I will. Maybe I'll have to get up a few times, and oh my God, like just that, really kind of sit with that and send messages of safety of like, nothing wrong with my bladder. That's not the issue. I'm safe and healthy. That's a mantra I use a lot. And really just, tell yourself this is it's your mind, it's your stress that's contributing to it. And you're safe and healthy. Actually, there's nothing wrong with you. And that's worked miracles in my life in carrying that issue. Because it is very difficult.
Please, can I just highlight, Rav? Yeah. Can I please highlight though, but what you just said though, you said, I noticed I'm going to have to get up to pee at 1:00, and then I got up to pee at 2:30, and then I got up to pee at 4. Yeah. Can you see? You checked the time each time. So what I'm just saying is all of that stuff is really important. And the self-talk and the I am safe, the polyvagal science, safety, self-talk, really important. But stop the checking of the time, because you are basically programming your subconscious to wake up at those times. And the minute you register a number, you're in beta wave consciousness, which is fully alert. If you wake up in alpha theta to go and pee, you can actually go to the toilet and pee more asleep than awake. But the minute you check the time, you have to bring yourself into full consciousness to register a number. So you're waking yourself up more, and then the thought process gets going. So please, please, please stop looking at the time when you're in this loop. Yeah.
All right, let's try to answer these as fast as we can. We got about half an hour because there's a lot. Mary asks, does nutritional status, levels of vitamins, minerals, etc. in your blood affect the quality, the continuity, and restfulness of sleep? In particular, she's asking about low vitamin D levels, but in general,
absolutely.
Do a vitamin and nutrient? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So vitamin D, funnily enough, coincidentally, I'm having a blood test tomorrow to get my vitamin D levels checked. But vitamin D, low vitamin D can affect your sleep. B vitamins can also affect stress levels, which can therefore affect sleep as well. So yeah, absolutely. The answer to that is yes. So if you're worried about not getting all of your minerals and micronutrients, maybe go to your doctor and have a good test. Get your thyroid, get a full thyroid check with all the thyroid splits. In the UK, we have to actually specify to our general practitioners that we want all the T3s, the T4s, all of the thyroid splits checked. But check thyroid, check vitamin D, check your vitamin status, your vitamin B as well, because that can affect. But also make sure you're eating properly, so you're getting good macros as well.
Yeah.
Because blood
Is
sugar,
there anything
blood
particular?
sugar control.
I mean, yeah, we mentioned vitamin D, vitamin B. Is there anything else on your radar for nutrients that one should watch out for in particular with relation to sleep?
Iron as well. Iron levels. Some forms of iron deficiency can affect your nervous system, can affect sleep.
Oh, interesting. It's funny. My mom just got her blood work yesterday, and her red blood count was very low. Her iron was incredibly low, and she's had some sleep issues. So maybe could be some relation there. Just to work on her iron. Start eating some more spinach or red meat.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Right. If someone has bipolar disorder, this will relate to you, Nerina, because you were once diagnosed with that. So Paula asks, if someone has bipolar disorder with difficulty sleeping due to racing thoughts, does the doctor have recommendations in addition to psychiatric medication for this problem? I feel like we could spend 3 hours talking about your journey.
I'm not a medical doctor. Yeah. Let's just point that out. I'm not a medical doctor. Yeah. So I don't diagnose medical conditions, and I don't prescribe. I have worked in a psychiatric clinic for 10 years. Ironically, the clinic where I was a patient years before that, and diagnosed with bipolar. When I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I was not eating properly. I was struggling for 15 years with eating disorders, and including anorexia, bulimia. I wasn't eating. I was smoking. I was probably drinking too much. I never ate breakfast. I lived on caffeine. So my energy, everyone's energy oscillates on a cycle like that. It goes up and down. Homeostasis. Every physiological process has an oscillatory sinusoidal rhythm. If you're not making good lifestyle choices, that rhythm is going to be extreme. I wasn't. And as a result, I presented with extreme psychiatric conditions, including psychosis. I was medicated back then for bipolar disorder. I'm now no longer medicated for anything. But as I've said several times in this conversation today, I know that my physiology is very sensitive. So I'm careful about my self-care. I'm fastidious about my self-care 90% of the time. There are times when I can let things slip. I'm on holiday and whatever. So I cannot answer this lady's question without knowing more about her. But if I were working with her one-to-one, she would be having at least 2 consultations with me. The first consultation, I'd be asking her a hell of a lot of questions about her lifestyle before we even start looking at medication. And in particular, I'd want to know about things like, are you eating properly? Are you eating breakfast? Are you living on stimulants? Those tend to set us up for spikes like that,
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. It's a very broad brush answer to that question.
Question. Yeah. And she can reach out to you. We'll leave the link to your website for if she wants to set up a consultation, or anyone else does, they can do so. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I work with people on a one-to-one basis, on a very limited basis. And, I'm not saying that people necessarily have to do that, but what I'm trying to maybe read the books first, read Tired But Wired, read the first book, because then I talk about the bipolar in that, but I talk about the things that smooth out the spikes.
Yeah. And I just a quick question on this. Like, do you have like a general view that like things like bipolar disorder are similar to things like ADHD and OCD? Like these are things that we've, as humans, have designated and coded these things in a particular way. Like oftentimes I feel like bipolar people put in a different category, like depression, ADHD, anxiety, OCD, etc. And bipolar is viewed as this very extreme neurological condition. But do you think that's more like it's also kind of exists on a spectrum and can be dealt with more on a fundamental level, rather than something people kind of viewed as just neurologically just so different from like a depression, which you can get overcome through exercise and therapy?
There are extremes. And I can't speak for everyone, and I'm certainly not trying to imply that because I overcame my bipolar patterns in a certain way, that everyone should be able to do that. But I do know that at the time of my diagnosis, I was carrying a lot of undealt with trauma from my childhood and probably epigenetic generational trauma. And I was making extremely poor lifestyle choices, which I swapped out. When I started to change in my physiology was when I started exercising more, eating very healthily, stopped smoking, not living on caffeine. I still have the odd glass of wine or whatever, but I drink very rarely. Very rarely. I'm very careful with alcohol because I know how it impacts my sleep. So I'm very careful about my self-care. Actually, I don't even think I'm that careful now because it's become so automatic. It's just become my way of life. And I love having lots of energy and not living off mood swings. But I do think that there is a spectrum. I love the work of Gabor Mate. I would really, if you can get Gabor on your podcast, Rav. Oh,
I've tried. I've tried. He's writing another book. The guy, he's 80 something, I think now, or late 70s, and he's still. And his last book, the Myth of Normal, which I got to read, it's so thick, and he has more to write. He's got more books coming.
He has. He's amazing.
He's busy.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And his take on ADHD and OCD and disorders. Given that in my immediate family, there are all sorts of labels that have been thrown around. In not just with me, but with my daughter, my father. But I love his stance on not being a victim to the label.
David Paul asks, even when I was young, I would wake up after only a few hours of sleep and would have to read or watch TV for 2 to 3 hours before falling asleep again. As an adult, I hardly sleep for more than 4 hours and end up taking a nap later in the day. I've always wondered why this is. Additionally, my many years in the military have conditioned me to be up early, usually before sunset.
Yeah, there's just so much in that person's question.
Yeah.
Again, I want to just get in there and have and ask loads of questions. I mean, we can program ourselves. It's amazing what you say to yourself. Self-suggestion can really perpetuate behaviors and create outcomes. So you're saying things like, I always wake up after 4 hours, and then you wake up, you go to bed at 10, you wake up at 2, and you look at the clock, there you go, it's 2 a.m. again. And you start creating this self-fulfilling prophecy of being the person who always wakes up at 2 a.m. after 4 hours. Then you go and watch TV or read for 2 hours. You always do that. There we go again. I'm always reading for 2 hours. So you perpetuate a behavior and a pattern. Or I get people who say to me, in my family, we're all night owls. It's genetic. Actually, it's not genetic. It's that your family got into behavioral patterns where you always went to bed late and woke up later. So you basically bought into that philosophy and picked up a pattern of behaviors and lifestyle choices which perpetuated that. So if I were working with somebody like this, I would want to get into what are the things that he's doing that is perpetuating that cycle, because we all, by the way, have a biphasic sleep pattern. All hunter-gatherers have an innate biphasic sleep pattern. You go to bed and you wake in the early hours. We all do it. I certainly did. I woke in the early hours and I thought, geez, my brain is going crazy. I don't know what time it was because I didn't look at the clock. I don't know how long that went on for because I didn't measure it. But I know that you can wake up during the night and think you've been awake for hours when you've been awake for seconds. Because time, the perception of time becomes very skewed at nighttime, like your dreams. Creativity goes, oh, I was awake for hours. You were awake. You had a sleep study done. That shows you were awake for 15 seconds. And the next day at the sleep laboratory, you go, do you see what I mean? I was awake for 2 hours. You weren't. You were awake for 15 seconds. Yeah. So when we're sleeping, we're navigating levels of consciousness. Right now, I'm in beta wave mode, fully awake. If I go into a relaxed state, I go into alpha. If I go down deeper, we're in theta. If I go down deeper, we're in delta. Now, you can be in a theta state of half asleep, semi-dreaming, but I might think, because of my reptilian brain, that yakking, yak, 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 chimp, I might think I'm in beta, but actually I'm in theta alpha. So the key when you wake up is not to check the time, not to go on your phone.
Yeah.
Bring yourself into those somatic exercises. I am safe. I'm safe in my body, the Havening technique.
Yep.
use the meditation that I shared. That's also on my website. And
Yep.
think more in terms of rest rather than sleep.
Yeah.
I'm just going to lie in a
Yeah.
state of rest, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
Brian asks, I'm using this question since you mentioned people who think that their family's filled with night owls. Brian asks, changing the sleep cycle. Some folks are owls and some are larks. Can owls become larks? And I assume larks means someone who would sleep on time.
Yeah. So a lark goes to bed early. Larks they stop singing early, and they rise early. So they start singing early at dawn chorus. So larks go to bed early, wake up early. Owls go to bed late, wake up late. And the research in chronobiology units, notably Professor Jim Horn's research, shows that for most people, there's a normal distribution. So there might be in one extreme, you've got your larks. The other extreme, you have your owls. But most of us can flex in our style. And we can be a bit owl-like and a bit lark-like. We can adapt. We're not extremes. There are small numbers of the population who are extremes, but the majority of us fit the middle piece of the bell-shaped curve, which means we can flex our style a bit. A lot of people say to me they are night owls. More people these days are saying to me that they are night owls, but they're not night owls. A night owl pattern has been created as a result of blue light, social media, dating sites, box sets, Netflix, catch-up TV. Do you see what I mean? The 24/7 society.
Right. Yeah.
We've become very unbounded as a society.
Yeah. But you're saying there are cases of people who are actually night owls?
Extremes, relatively small percentage of the population. So if somebody comes to me and says they're night owls, what I'm going to be saying to them is, what time are you getting away from your phone? How late are you on your phone? You're in bed scrolling. Okay, you've got one thing that's telling me you're possibly not on. How much caffeine are you drinking? Okay, of course, you're delaying your sleep cycle. You eating breakfast first thing in the morning or not? Are you oversleeping into the morning? You're oversleeping into the morning?
Yeah.
Of course you're going to be a bloody night owl because you're sleeping too much into the morning. So of course you don't want to go to bed until too late. Are you napping in the afternoon and are you over-napping in the afternoon? Of course you're a bloody night owl. Excuse my language, but I get so irritated by the things people say. And then they go, ooh, I'm a night owl. You're not a night owl. Yeah. You've got bad lifestyle choices. Get over yourself.
Yeah. I've never thought of myself in that particular way, but I've always had an affinity for staying up late. And I've talked to my friends about this before, like just this idea of nighttime, party, have fun, or just by yourself and just have no responsibility, watch TV, music. But none of that means anything physiological. It's just it can be fun to stay up late, which I do like, but physiologically, I know that's not good for me. So I'm not a night owl by any means. But you're saying there are.
Yeah. And it could be easy to numb out. It can be easy to numb out from the things we don't want to deal with during the day, the traumas, the upsets, the worries, the loneliness, the grief, the whatever. So we numb out on just another episode, or I'm just going to, and then where does it show up? In your dreams. Because you ain't dealing with it in your waking hours. You know, and you're medicating, self-medicating with dopamine.
Right.
It takes courage, some of this.
What would an actual night owl look like? The very rare extreme case, which is likely not anyone listening to this podcast, although who knows? What does that look like? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, an extreme night owl, it's really difficult to, you would probably go to a sleep laboratory and do a sleep study, and they'd go, I can see that your circadian timer is really behaving in a certain way much later in the day. Your melatonin production is elevating much later than the average person. So I have a great book. I'm a complete bookworm. I read books on paper as well, like a dinosaur. But there's a book by Mason Curry, Curry, I think, or RRIE. He's written a book on daily routines and rituals, and he talks about the habits of creatives. And, from people like Van Gogh to, modern day famous celebrities who will call themselves night owls. But if you look at their habits and their routines and rituals, you'll see that, they kind of perpetuated a night owl physiological pattern through the lifestyle habits. Yeah, so I think to answer that in a more scientific way, I suppose definitively, if you have a sleep study and it's identifying brainwave patterns, which are typical of a night owl, then you've got your definitive answer there. But question your behaviors before you put yourself in the category of being a night owl.
All right, I'm going to give you questions in pairs now for the last 12 minutes.
Jeez, you are really flogging me.
I'll try to be succinct. I've heard that you need a completely dark room to get the most beneficial sleep. Is that true? I struggle with sleep, but I don't have window treatments on the large windows in my room, so I use a mask that makes me feel like I'm in darkness. Will that have the same effect, or will the light that comes into the room at night still impact my sleep negatively?
The better a sleeper you become, as in good lifestyle habits that work on your nervous system, the less you need your external environment to be perfect, So blackout blinds, of course they help. Eye masks, of course it helps. I have blackout blinds in my bedroom, but I also have a dog that sleeps on my bedroom and constantly jumps onto the window seat so she opens the curtains. But, that would irritate me if I'm going through a night of not getting great sleep. I'll get irritated by it. But when I'm a good sleeper, which is what I am the majority of the time at the moment, having blackout blinds, it doesn't make a difference to me hugely. But for those of you who are struggling, help yourself by getting blackout blinds or an eye mask. I'll tell you what I do love is if you go to a yoga class, you can get yoga eye pillows. They're weighted. They have like beads and lavender in them. You put that on your eyes if you wake up during the night. And this would be good for the lady who's having pain and peeing a lot. You get a yoga eye pillow weighted and you put it on your eyes. And what it does is it seems to slow down the overthinking process, just pressing the gentle weight on the eyes. And it will fall off at some point when you fall asleep if you turn over, so that you're not constantly having this weight on your eyes, I personally only use an eye mask if I know that I can sleep in the mornings. If I don't want to sleep in too late, I don't wear an eye mask because it can help. It can make me get more sleep. So darkness definitely helps. It helps.
Yeah.
But the better a sleeper you become, the less you need it. Yeah.
I got you. Tanya is asking, I'm frequently almost shaken or startled awake around dawn. Feels like a shot of adrenaline. I happen to start propranolol I assume it's a medication for migraine prophylaxis, and it stopped.
Yes.
Why was this happening in the first place? I'll just make a small note and say that has happened to me before, and I've identified that that's likely just the excitement or rush for work, especially because I'm in Pacific time, and so it's like 6 a.m. my time, 9 a.m. Eastern time already in New York and other places on the East Coast, and so I've found that rush is due to just being excited about work and checking emails and Twitter and DMs, etc. So I'm trying to take steps to overcome that, and I already have. But what's your take on that, Nerina?
So you've got an associated behavior there that's getting you up. With this person, it could be stress related, which is why she's been given a beta blocker to help her to relax. The fact that she suffers from migraines, a chronic pain condition, which I'm really sorry for her for, because I know how awful that is. My daughter has the same. But I've done a lot of research around migraines, and a lot of this is dealing with stress. A lot of migraine.
Yeah.
I mean, migraines are so multifactorial, but the more she can deal with her stress, the more she can work on being able to relax, and maybe taking up some form of very gentle yoga or yoga nidra, body progressive muscle relaxation. That would be a really good thing for her to do. So if she can access that meditation I taught in the previous podcast, or find it on Instagram, my Instagram page, that I love my left foot, using that if she gets that jerk, because there is something called a hypnagogic jerk where you wake and it's not an excited feeling. It's actually a stressful feeling. It's a kind of, it's a panicky feeling, which is why she may have been prescribed propranolol. So it sounds like for her, it's not excitement, it's soothing and safety that she's needing. So that's where the work lies.
Yeah. Ken is asking, it's kind of a longer question, but in 2014, he fell off a 5-foot scaffold onto the concrete. He landed on his head, put me in the hospital for a full month in October. Took me about 2 to 3 years to recover. The doctor prescribed trazodone to help me sleep because I couldn't sleep. 10 years later, I'm still on it. If I don't take it before bed, I just lay there all night and then get up in the morning. I've tried a couple times for a week or so to try to get off it, but it hasn't worked. So I'm open to ideas. And then Manaid also asks about Ambien. A couple of other people have also asked about getting off of Ambien, that particular medication.
I'm just going to remind people that I have worked in a psychiatric clinic for 10 years where a lot of those people were on sleeping medications. Most of them were. And the thing about sleep medication is that it stops working after a while. The gentleman who's on trazodone, chances are the trazodone is not working anymore, but he thinks it's working. So he's associating, there's almost like a placebo effect where he thinks that because it's working, it's working. It could be like me and my magnesium. Who knows, you know? Look up Dr. Nerina, Huffington Post, the 10 things your doctor wants to recommend before they prescribe sleeping tablets. So that's on Huffington. I've written something years ago for the Huffington Post on this, but it sounds like these people who are taking their sleeping tablets really need to look at the holistic therapies, need to look at my 5 non-negotiables, access that course. It's dirt cheap. Look at those things, learn how to stabilize your nervous system.
Okay.
And then you start looking at all the other strategies we've been talking about in these podcasts, whether it's journaling, whether it's the havening, self-soothing techniques, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's getting on top of your pain management, working on your trauma. But in the long term, the bottom line is sleeping tablets are addictive and they stop working. And you start to believe that it's the sleeping tablet that's working, when actually it's the power of your amazing mind, if you could just use it in the right way to help you to sleep instead of thinking it's the pill.
Yeah.
I hope you got all of that.
I'll throw these 2 at you. I'll throw 2 at you here. Albert's asking about sleep gadgets, auto sleep, Apple Watch, Fitbit. I use Whoop personally. I know you use Aura. How accurate are they? And then question number 2, are there any supplements or vitamins that should not be taken before going to bed at night? That's a really good question.
The supplements, like things like ginseng, that's an easy one. Things like ginseng can be overstimulating. Sometimes even things like ginseng, coenzyme Q10. I would say those kinds of supplements, and even ashwagandha too close to bedtime for some people. For me, it can be quite stimulating. So do your research, get to know your physiology and how it's responding to things. It's kind of my message on that one. Obviously, things like cocoa, that can be very overstimulating. So eating too much chocolate, too much sugar before you go to bed. Obviously, caffeine, that's the obvious one. The other question, which was about, what was the other question?
Sleep trackers. Sleep trackers.
I really wanted to get to this one. So if sleep trackers, there is a form of insomnia called orthosomnia, O-R-T-H-O, somnia, which is the poor sleep that arises as a result of the obsessive, perfectionistic overthinker overly tracking their sleep and getting overly controlling about it. So I personally find the most useful pieces of data from my tracker to be my resilience score and also my daytime restoration. I find those the most useful. And I've been tracking for 4 years because I was gifted this 4 years ago, and it's on its way out now because I have to charge it every day. But over measurement of your sleep, overly taking that data seriously is not helpful. And I would say take it with a smallish pinch of salt. And when you've been measuring for a couple of years, then you start to get to know how your data works, I would say. So I know that a session like this, my data probably right now is in stressed. I am not stressed, but I'm highly engaged with this. And my nervous system is saying, I need a break from talking because it's impacting on my breathing, which is overstimulating my sympathetic nervous system. So if I have a look at it,
it's all my fault.
Yeah, we've gone from restoration, and it's tracking up into stress. So I've done a lot of talking today because of interviews, consultations, and I've got another thing at 7:30. So I know that for the next hour, I'm going to really not talk until 7:30. And then after that, I'm going to the river, cold water immersion. The river's still going to be cold. And that's going to help to normalize my nervous system. And my aura ring will then drop into restoration. And that's where I find it useful. But I don't look too heavily at my data, my sleep data, although it will say like my sleep was, I don't know, was it 90 something percent? And my readiness level was 96%. So whatever I'm doing, that, but I find resilience and restoration more helpful.
Let's try to, you can do these rapid fire. Danny's asking if I get very little light sleep, but decent REM/deep sleep, is that sufficient? And then Betsy's asking, if I can't sleep, should you get up and work until you feel tired or just lay there in bed while the hours tick by?
I'm not going to take the first question because I don't know without looking at her data and talking to her about how it's impacting on her daily life. I don't know what she's measuring with, so I don't know how accurate those measurements are. So I'm not going to answer that one. The next one is, if you wake up during the night, should you get up and do stuff? My default for that one is to try and learn techniques for resting, settling the nervous system, whether through breathing, through prayer, through gratitude, through havening, through the meditation I shared previously. If you get into the habit, like your military chap, ex-military chap who's sleeping 4 hours, getting up and watching TV for 2 hours, you're creating a habit which is not going to serve you, and it's ingraining a bad habit. Doesn't help in the long term.
Gotcha. And one person's asking about struggling with insomnia for a long time and being very sleep deprived. They're really struggling. In that case, would it be best to book a consult with you or take your course, read your book for someone
a course,
who's struggling
book a
that
consult,
much?
Read one of my books. We kind of have run out of time, Rav. I don't want to do this person a disservice by invalidating or minimizing if they've had long-term sleep problems. It might be that it's just one consultation to tip the balance. Or it might be just look at that online course, which is considerably cheaper than seeing me one-to-one. Yeah. I'm in autumn, September, October, setting up, again, inexpensive, Become Your Own Sleep Coach, which is a group program for people, which will be twice a month, group masterclasses, plus one shorter consultation with me, which is half an hour. And that's going live September, October. Hopefully watch this space. But there are other resources they can tap into before they have to have a consultation with me, which is more expensive.
Great. Well, you can email me, or maybe we'll even have you on again around September or something to promote your this course. I think it's a great opportunity for people. And of course, they can check out your course online. We'll link to that, and your books. And if they can afford it and they're really struggling, I think a consultation could be very helpful to a lot of people. So we'll link all that below. Nerina, thanks so much for being here. We got through almost all the important questions. So I think we've done
Brilliant.
Well.
Thank you so much for your generosity, Rav, for having me 3 times on your show. It has been a pleasure to work with you. You've wrung me out dry. No, I'm joking. No, it's been good. It's been good fun as well, and really good to speak to you. So I look forward to more. I'll be back if you want me.
All right, great.
Okay.
Yes, no, we definitely want you. All right, thanks everyone for listening, and we hope your sleep questions have been answered.
Has the dust settled from the COVID policy response? Far from it. The storms are many. Inflation, learning losses, ill health, high crime, broken government services, displaced workers, substance abuse, mass loneliness, discredited science, real estate crisis, censorship, and overweening state power. The world is on fire with war, mass killings, crime, hunger, revolution. The lack of accountability, or even so much as an apology, is a foreshadowing. They'll keep their newfound powers and try it all again. Brownstone Institute is seeking answers, undertaking important research and publishing the results while providing fellowships for dissident scholars who have been professionally displaced. It's not about this one crisis. We urgently need to restore peace, prosperity, and integrity in science and journalism. Visit brownstone.org for more. We may never get to the truth, but we can get closer to the truth. There will be no stopping the efforts.